Hello, Governor. This is Rick Steve, new from the Ville, and I'm here to talk to you about Doctor Who, Season 10, Episode 2, Smiles. But first, let me tell you a little story. When I was a teacher, we had a student who she had been sick for a while, and she passed during the school year. And this was a devastating blow, not only to the staff, but to many of the students. And now, like a school does, they called in grief counselors, they called in people. We had a assembly to talk to the students all at one time. We sent letters out to their parents just to let them know that this has happened, and if your child experiences any form of grief or sadness or emotional instability, this might be the cause of it. We put out the phone numbers of people that they could talk to, the whole thing. But when you're dealing with a situation like that, it's very hard to maintain that picture of strength, because I knew that it didn't matter in that moment how I personally felt. I had to be there and be strong enough for my students who were falling apart. And then you also had to have that type of discernment to know the students who were for real, who were friends with this young lady, who were really having a hard time dealing with it, and the ones that wanted attention. And you would be surprised at how many kids that are. There was ones who wanted attention and they showed out. They was falling all down and inconsolable, but they weren't even friends with that little girl, barely knew her, didn't talk to her. And as a staff member, I had to remember that I had to keep my focus on the kids and be a positive pillar of strength for them. Even though I might have been dying inside a little bit, and I just remember the smile, that place of positivity that I had to constantly portray to my students. Even if I didn't feel like it, I had to fake it. Let's talk about it. Hello, Governor. This is Rick Steve, new from the Ville, and we're here to talk about Doctor Who, Season 10, Episode 2, Smiles. Now, if you rocked with me for any amount of time, you know that I'm really trying hard to keep these recaps short, and then we'll go into the quotes, my own personal thoughts, and then out of here. Now, Nardo keeps reminding the Doctor, you took an oath to stay on Earth. You need to stay here. And the Doctor says the hell with that. And he lets Bill select where they go. He asks her, do you want to go to the past or you want to go to the future? She's like, the future. So they land in the future on an off-world colony of Earth. Now, the thing is, when they get there, it's empty. There's no one around but these little robots. And the robots give them a little sticker, and it's a thing that they're supposed to put on their back, and it's an emoji. And this is how they assume that they communicate with these robots. The Doctor's like, well, the ship hasn't arrived yet. It must be on its way. So they're going around, looking around, but the Doctor's like, something is off. They find a garden, but the fertilizer that's being used is actual people. And they go into the machine and all these bones fall out of it, and it's like the pre-colony crew that got here to set up their colony to make sure that it was good to go before everybody else got here. Something on this planet has killed all these people, and they're now fertilizing the garden. The Doctor quickly figures out that it's the robots And if you get happy, because since your little emoji thing is in the middle of your back, you can't see your mood, but other people can see it. And the robots can sense. The robots can sense. So once you start to get unhappy, once you get, double crying emoji or whatever, that's your ass. So the doctor tells Bill, doesn't matter how you feeling, keep a smile on your face. Smile. The doctor wants to get rid of Bill. He wants to make sure that she's safe on the TARDIS. He's got to go back and investigate because he's like, I don't want the colonists to get here. These robots will kill him. So he goes to locate the ship that brought the pre-colony people there. But while he's searching the ship, Bill runs into a little boy. And the little boy said he'd been there. He's looking for his mother. And they find that the colony ship is already there. Because he was going to overload the reactor of the pre-colony ship and blow up the whole place. But that is the colony ship, and all the colonists are in like a kind of suspended animation in hibernation chambers. And what the doctor quickly figures out is that the Vardy, the little robots, have gained some kind of sentience. And when the colonists, the pre-colonists, when they were setting up the place, someone died of natural causes, caught a cold, who knows, maybe they were old, they died. And it made other people sad, and grief happened. Well, the Vardy, they were there to monitor the pre-colonists and make sure that their emotions stayed high, that they were happy. They're programmed to make sure the colonists stayed happy. Well, when some people got sad, they weren't programmed for that. And they thought that that was a sickness. They thought it was a plague, a disease that was making the people unhappy. And they started killing the colonists. You got sad, took your ass out. So then, once they start getting killed by the Vardy, all the other pre-colonists got super sad, and they said it was a grief tsunami. Everyone got sad, and the Vardy took all their asses out, killed them all, because their programming was to keep the people happy. So the doctor determines he's not going to blow up the ship, but now what does he do? And he starts waking up the people, maybe inadvertently. The hibernation chambers they start to awake. The doctor kind of tells all the people what happened. The people, they do the first thing that we do. They went and got their guns, and they're like, we gonna take out the Vardy, we gonna take out the robots. She's like, you don't understand. This entire complex is made of nanorobot. This entire complex is made of nanorobots. You can't take out them all because everything you see is one of them damn robots. The doctor figures the only way that he can stop what's going to happen between the people and the Vardy, because the Vardy start to be like, wait a minute, y'all attacking us? Oh, this must be a new plague. We're going to defend ourselves. So they're starting to come alive, come awake. The doctor resets. He finds a way to reset the Vardy to their original state. And then he negotiates a way for the humans and the Vardy to coexist without the Vardy making the same mistake that they did last time, assuming that grief was something that was not good for the humans. When the doctor and Bill finally leave, they get back to London, but it's not the London that they left, because they're now in the 1800s or so, and the Thames River is completely frozen over, and the first thing that they see when they get out of the TARDIS is an elephant walking on the frozen Thames towards them. And then it's fade to black. You know that I like my quotes, and I only have one today. And this quote is actually from Karen White, and she says, "Death and loss, they plague you. So do memories. Like the Mississippi's incessant slap against the levees, they creep up with deceptive sweetness before grabbing your heart and pulling it under." I'm going to call today's particular media therapy deep dive, Fake It. Now, the thought of grief as a plague can evoke certain images, certain thoughts into your head, but it's not scientifically accurate. Grief is a natural human response. Grief is actually a healthy and normal emotional process after loss, and that can come from maybe death of a loved one or loss of a loved one, a relationship or what have you, loss of a job, just a general change in your circumstances. Now, dealing with grief involves acknowledging your emotions, taking care of your physical and your mental health, and then also trying to seek support from your loved ones and, if you need it, professionals. The thing about grief is a personal journey. And there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Just allowing yourself to feel and even express your emotions is a key to you dealing with that grief. When my grandfather died, my mother's father, he was one of the first people close to me that died in such a way that it wasn't about me. I had a good, healthy relationship with my grandfather. He was much older. He was different. He was a wild boy. But he was cool. But it wasn't about me in that moment. I watched the effect that it took on my mother. And that was what concerned me. A lot of people in my family were sad because they had grew up around my grandfather. It didn't hit me the same way it hit everybody else, and I wondered why. But when my grandmother passed in 2022, she had lived to the ripe old age of 102 years old. She was born in 1920. She lived a long, healthy life, and towards the end of her years, she had Alzheimer's and dementia a little bit, and she wasn't the same woman that I had been around once I finally got around my grandmother. But the loss of my grandmother and the loss of my grandfather hit me two completely different ways. I know when my grandfather died, my mother didn't really show it. But when my grandmother died, that hit her hard. It hit me hard because I had a great relationship with my grandmother, one of the sweetest women I have ever known. I've only heard her raise her voice twice. And then she was mad at one of my cousins because they were wilding. And in that moment, the grief, it swept over me. I understand a grief tsunami. It swept over me, and it was hard to deal with. Because again, even though I'm older, I'm an adult, my mother is still my mother, and you would think she would look out for how am I feeling? How were her grandchildren feeling? I wasn't concerned with how I was feeling. I was concerned with how she was feeling. This was her mother. And in the latter, last 10, 15 years, I want to say my mom had put her life on hold and really dropped everything to care for my grandmother. My grandmother wasn't at a, old folks retirement home. She wasn't in hospice, none of that. My mother cared for my grandmother in my grandmother's home, the one that she lived in a good chunk of her life with my grandfather. She cared for in her own home because that's where things was familiar to her. And as long as to keep my grandmother mentally sharp, as long as we could, it helped to keep her in familiar surroundings. But that grief, it takes such different forms, and grief can trigger a range of emotions, and they show up differently on different people. So you deal with sadness and anger, guilt, and you can become numb. And sometimes, it's hard to experience these things without judgment. The way other people may judge you, the way you may judge yourself. When other people are hurting, you may judge yourself too harshly for, how dare I put my own feelings paramount and first when this other person's hurting. I got to deal with their hurt and put mine on the back burner. Grief can significantly impact your physical and your mental health. And memorials, wakes, funerals, even though they're part of the process of grieving, they can change your mood altogether. I absolutely hate wakes and funerals. And I understand that it is a time to say your last respects, but I can't stand them. I even understand how other countries, and like New Orleans, they do a wake, a funeral, as a celebration of life, as opposed to the sadness that comes with most funerals that I know of, where people are just distraught at the loss of life. Whether they've had a long life or the really hard ones are people, unexpected and young people. I don't like either one though. And it's not because I'm selfish. It's that with everything else going on in my life, that wave of grief, and not only, especially if you're empathic, feeling other people's grief can hit you like a wall, and it's a lot to deal with. Now, I don't think I'm empathic. Most people that are, they feel it, they know it. But I usually don't like dealing with the foolishness that comes with a lot of wakes and funerals. Like I talked about that story in the beginning, I had students who end up showing out because they want some attention. And I have seen some wakes and some funerals where people showed out for attention. When I was in high school, one of my cousins, he was a cousin he was a cousin, actually. He was a first cousin to one of my first cousins, but on the other side of his family. So technically, he's not even related to me at all. But my first cousin had a first cousin on the other side of his family. And that cousin we went to school with. We were all the same age. So his younger brother died. It was a bad situation. I don't want to go into, the specifics. He was a few years younger than we were. And it was a horrific accidental death in the house. The wake was probably one of the biggest attended gatherings I'd ever seen outside of something that is marked as a party or a concert or a ball game. Like, the young man, he was only in middle school at the time, and everyone in the city turned up. But everyone in the city didn't turn up for the same reasons. Some people were genuinely sad, grieving, upset that something this senseless had happened. A lot of other people just turned up to see who was there. FOMO, fear of missing out. Everybody else was there, so they turned up. Some people turned up to see the fireworks. Because apparently, Lil Cuz, he was an extremely popular young man, and he had a girlfriend or 2 or 8 in all the different high schools and middle schools in town. And all of these little girls turned up to the wake to want to be the mother's favorite because they were his only girlfriend, just to find out that they weren't the only girlfriend. And let Love and hip hop basketball girlfriends of Lexington commence. And it was all out chaos. And when I'm talking about, they fought like cats and dogs in the funeral homes. Just zero respect. It was an unmitigated disaster. And it was at that point I said, you know what? I'm not doing this shit ever again. I'm not going to this shit. I was sad about the loss of Lil Cuz, but they turned that into a mess where people became selfish and it's all about me. Okay, little girl, you didn't find out that he had other little girls or girlfriends or girls he's talking to. That don't mean that you go punch the little girl in the face who's sitting next to his mother. That could be his cousin. You don't know who that is. Like that, it's a damn travesty. You know, it's easy for me. I can get on here and you hear me talk all the time about therapy. Therapy is wonderful. I don't say it often enough, but a prayer life. That might not be your thing, and it doesn't have to be. It's my thing. Prayer life is important. It's tantamount, right next to therapy. Higher than therapy. Every day when I wake up and I get out of bed, prayer. Before I go to bed, prayer. I don't gotta call my therapist. Praying is free. My therapist costs. But you have to understand, grief is personal. Everyone grieves differently, and there's no timeline for being healthy. You gotta be patient with yourself, or patient with others, and let the process unfold naturally. It's also going to be complex. You can have a range of different emotions that pop up. You can go from sadness and anger to joy, reminiscing, back to sadness. Your process is your process. Only thing I can tell you in this situation is that you should absolutely try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And practice some self-compassion. Give yourself some grace. Or give the other people that you see dealing with grief, give them some grace. Practice compassion, a little empathy. And do the best you can to support the people that you know they're going through something. And that includes your strong friends. A lot of times the people who are being strong from others are the ones who need the most grace and the most compassion. This is Rakai Steed, new from the Ville. Make sure that you share this as much as possible. Hit me with a like and leave me some comments. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode and what you think about grief and any grief that you've had to deal with. How did you find your way through it? And if for some reason you haven't subscribed, I get it. A lot of people haven't subscribed. However you found the channel, I appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button so you can be in the know for the next time I post. Remember, everything I talk about, I use this, but it's even more important for you to use this.